Welcome everyone to episode 3, Learning Solidity, the Language of Ethereum, featuring Bokky Poobah and interviewed by Denny. Thank you so much, guys. Take the stage. Can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. We're on a roll today. We're back this time, once again, with the one, the only, Bokky Poobah. As we begin the discussion today, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome again, day 3 of Blockchain Week, and it's brought to you by Block 8, and this session is brought to you by Mycelium. People often ask me what Mycelium does, and I could explain at length, but that's for another time. For now, I encourage you to get over to our website, mycelium.ventures, and take a look at our companies, find out what they do, some interesting things there, and you can check out the careers page as well. So in the series so far, we've heard from Anthony Sassano. You can get there with Anthony on thedailyway.substack.com, and Jack Deeb from Mycelium, and he's easy to find on LinkedIn, so check them out there. In part 3 of our limited series on the Ethereum, the world computer, we're going to dive into learning Solidity, the language of Ethereum, and we're lucky to have Bokky Poobah with us today. I've had an absolute pleasure to get to know Bokky recently, and I would describe him as a gentleman so casual and graceful. With how he surfs the web and gets his way through the community, you might actually call him the Mark Richards of crypto.
So, Mark.
Bokky, what inspires someone like yourself to want to dive into software development in the first place?
I think it lets me become an inventor. It's
Sure.
like playing with Lego blocks.
Sure.
So, yes, the blockchain language allows you to put lots of different Lego blocks together.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's something empowering about that, right? The building aspects to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you talk decentralization because we're talking Ethereum, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and some people think that decentralization means people sitting in different offices. Yeah, but what does decentralization actually mean from a developer perspective? Like, what can you actually do?
So you can write code and deploy it on a platform, and the platform can't be shut down. Your code can't be shut down. You have the data readily available for you to build on, and it's not controlled by one particular group, but instead it's collectively owned and run.
Right. So, I mean, I guess, in essence, you're saying that it could live forever.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Contributing to history in a pretty major way. Then.
It is.
Yeah. So you knew about Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and then you discovered Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the hook there with you for Ethereum in particular? Like what drew you in?
So I heard about Bitcoin, but it was not that interesting, transferring something to something. It's like a digital wheel has been created, but you can't do much with it.
Right.
So I was looking for things to do with what the trusted platform provides. And Ethereum then went live in the middle of the year 2015. And I couldn't believe it because what I was looking for, it was there. And so I had to try it out and find out how it worked. So I started answering questions on Ethereum Stack Exchange to see what people were interested in learning. And then I started writing the questions and answering it myself.
Okay.
So there's some interesting Q&As there, and it helped me understand how the Ethereum blockchain system works.
No doubt. Now I believe that you're actually pretty high up in terms of the contributions to the Ethereum Stack Exchange. Now that's awfully generous amount of time that you put in there. Like, why do you do that? What drives you to want to contribute to a community as opposed to just sort of working on your own projects necessarily?
So initially, I found that Ethereum was a platform that I could use in certain ways. And then once you get to know the people in the community and what their intentions are, then you also realize that your contributions are significant.
Right.
So you change the flavor of the whole community just by being there.
Sure.
Doing what you do.
Yeah.
And so this was a good opportunity for myself to shape the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, there's a story that I think we're going to get into and we're going to tell because it's a really interesting story and not a lot of people are aware. Now, previously in episode 2, we had Jack Deeb and he talked about DAOs and the structures and what that looked like. But I want to go back to a period in 2016. You were in contact with one of the legends of the space, Taylor Monahan, founder and CEO of MyCrypto. And you can follow Taylor on Tayvano_. So MyCrypto, just as a way to sort of explain it, offers a way for people to be able to manage their Ethereum and the related digital assets on top of Ethereum with self-custody. So you and Taylor were talking, and in connection, there was the DAO hack, the famous Ethereum DAO hack, which resulted in the Ethereum fork. And there's a lot of history on that, even on the Ethereum.org website. Unlike many others that just decided to read about it, like myself, after the fact, you rolled up your sleeves and you got involved. Can you tell us what were you doing during this period to help people recover from this pretty monumentous event that occurred in the history?
So the DAO was a very interesting concept because it showed that people wanted to contribute towards making significant changes. Then there was a bug. So I was a contributor, and as a contributor, you become involved. You've got a bit of skin in it. And so I was writing tools to submit or check proposals, to compute balances and how things work. And then the DAO hack happened, and I ran my scripts and got all the information out that's necessary. The white hat group had to do some attacks after the fork and all that. And then there was the extra balance account that was a bit complicated.
Sure.
So for the refund of the funds from the DAO, we needed to calculate some of these numbers, and so I had the tools to quickly do it, and so we cross-checked, and everyone got back their original investments in the DAO.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now, one of the things about that as well, it wasn't just a matter of retrieving them. People were trusting you. You had a profile, and in terms of contribution, what you've been doing, your activity, you were definitely a leader in the space and in the contribution. People were sending you their private keys.
Yeah.
They were trusting you with this information.
That's right. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably pretty reflective of where the community got in terms of getting off the ground. That's it. Really.
But the thing is that I don't feel comfortable holding people's funds.
Sure.
So as soon as they give it, I want to make sure I've done it and do away with it. Because having custody of people's funds is not fun.
That's a tough game. Yeah. That's a problem for companies like MyCrypto to solve, right?
Yes.
Better in the hands of companies like that. So we're here to discuss today the language of Solidity in particular. The language of Solidity is the language of Ethereum. How difficult is it to learn this language?
If you have done some JavaScript or some C++, Java, one of these languages, the structure of Solidity looks very familiar.
Sure, okay.
And you can very easily go and find examples around and copy paste, test it out, change something. It's easy enough to do something with it. It's hard to get it right.
Right. And so I think that's probably a good sort of point to focus on here in terms of it's easy to learn Solidity. I think I heard this from you actually. It's easy to learn Solidity. It's hard to write it well. Yeah. And so in terms of that exploration of writing it well, what are the types of tools or what's the sort of commitment look like, for developers to really sort of strengthen their knowledge and their power in sort of making these commitments?
So I ran 160 workshops here in Sydney for developers to come and learn how to do these things, like what is a private key, how do you use it, how do you connect to the blockchain, what can you do, Solidity smart contracts, some examples, change it. And so we had a whole lot of exercises. It takes a while to understand how it all fits in. So if you come into the space where you're doubting certain things, it's hard to move and understand why people are doing what they're doing. the reason why Solidity is designed the way it is so that you can write your systems that will run forever.
Sure.
And can't be stopped.
The infinite machine.
Yeah, but you get people coming in and wanting to put lots of controls around.
Sure.
Because there's a different mindset. So it takes a while to step into that mindset of crypto, like self-custody, responsibility for your own crypto.
Yeah, sure, sure. Now, through your classes that you've been teaching to learn Solidity, you've actually had some students go through those classes and have gone on to some pretty large areas. Can you give us some examples of where some of your students have landed?
Some of your favorite mixers, your DEXers, the people working there, some of them have come to the classes, and we had people coming from overseas and spending like 2 months down here in Sydney.
Yeah.
And they just come in, have contact and learn what they needed to do, and then go off in ICO. And they're running a project and it's quite respectable. Right. So I've had quite a few of these people building projects, and they just come in, work out what can be done, what the possibilities are, risk. I help audit the smart contract.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Pretty amazing feat though, that here in Australia we're actually training these people globally in terms of contributing to Ethereum, the world's computer, is that they're actually coming here to Australia. So that's a pretty admirable thing, and they come to see you, which is good. And in due course, I think we're going to be talking a little bit later about you doing them again. So that's exciting. Now, the vision for Solidity. What's your opinion? Where does it end up? Where do we go? Like, what's the broad spectrum view on this language versus others? Because there's some controversy around that, right? So why Solidity in particular?
I think it's just what was then.
Right.
So someone just made some decisions, and that was the best at that stage. And you can always go back and think, I could have done it better. Sure. One way or the other. So lots of foot guns in Solidity.
right, sure.
So there's other languages, Brownie, I forget what they're called, Pythonish language, but I'm more used to the Java-ish language.
Sure.
So they're just tools that were designed that way at that time. The legacy will stay, and there'll be new tools that come out that improve on some of these things.
Absolutely. So in terms of it being accessible to developers today who are programming the languages you discussed earlier, it's not that scary to make the shift over.
Not that scary.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. And hopefully, again, when we open those borders and get more people coming back, we can get more people on board. Some organizations think of their developers as a cost center, and that's a problem culturally as well, right? For developers, as this technology changes and companies think about sort of adopting Ethereum as a platform to build on, how do you think this changes that dynamic in terms of developers coming out from that type of perspective and sort of being more central to this evolution of Ethereum?
That's complicated. You've got to repeat that again.
Okay, so in terms of developers sort of being back from cost center to sort of being more in a leadership role of building and sort of having the vision and the impact of contributing to an infinite machine where the code won't die, and they can sort of build this vision around it, but they're empowered more individually through decentralization. So what does that look like?
I think you want to be, I think very soon, it's just like using Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets where people can use it. You're going to have people who understand some of how these things work. Like what's happening in DeFi is not just one smart contract, but a whole lot of interlinked smart contracts. To understand how it all works, it takes a lot of work to get to that stage. So it's complicated because the machinery allows complicated things to happen.
Sure. Opportunities are obviously. It's very, very
exciting. So even if you can read the code, it makes it already a lot more accessible to you to understand how these things work.
Right.
And not many people currently understand how it works.
Sure. Okay. And in terms of resources and things like that, where people can look, like where do you recommend if people are just curious about this, they're currently developing a more traditional technology company, they're bored, they don't really get to see their products launched into the market, but they can come and affect change and take part of that. Where should they start to explore? What are the tool sets that you can start to play, of course, before we get to your workshops?
So most of the news comes out on Twitter.
Sure, okay.
So
Crypto Twitter, okay,
Yeah,
we're
that's
back there, yes.
So yeah, if you just follow like my Twitter or one of the other people in the space, you get all the news coming out, like Anthony Sassano, for example.
Of course, yeah.
And it is, the space is developing very quickly. There's so many different technologies that are coming out, including the layer 2s, zero knowledge rollups, and so it's hard to keep track of all these things. If you want to jump into the space, you just have to jump in and start picking up what you can. It's unlimited. It's a fire hose.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they can start that journey by following you on Twitter. And I believe Blockchain Australia is actually going to put that in the chat. So so follow Bokky on Twitter. I do. And there's a lot of great stuff that comes out from there. And Anthony Sassano as well, that we had yesterday. And some great thinkers that we've got on this series as well. We've got Nick Johnson tomorrow. We've got Peter Robinson. So we look forward to that. So definitely follow these folks and listen to sort of, where it's going and what you can do to affect the change. Now, we spoke briefly about an ask of the community, an ask of people, in particular in Sydney at the moment. But Bokky was running these workshops for a long time, and 160 of them so far. And people have gone on to some pretty major places, in around DeFi, and created these companies worldwide, and contributing in a major way to Ethereum. So for people who are looking to learn the language and build these, future-looking companies and exciting projects, we're looking for a space that's very developer-friendly, has like a bit of a creative energy to it. So if you're thinking about hosting and leaning into the future and adopting more of this type of culture of developer first and leaning into a highly secure infrastructure like Ethereum, then reach out to Bokky, or you can reach out to myself, and be more than happy to make that happen. It's important to get more people thinking about it and have access to the tools. And now that we're doing things in person again, that's very strong, because you can feel more comfortable being in a room with real people learning and doing the troubleshooting. So that'd be good. So please, if you've got ideas, you've got a space, and you want to embrace and have these workshops hosted, then Bokky would be more than happy to bring it over. So reach out to him directly. Now, we've got a little bit of time left before we jump over to the next panel. So if you've got questions, please hit us in the chat, and Bokky and I will be here to answer them. Now, I've got one here. Is there a great difference between Solidity and other smart contract languages? So
I know of two smart contract languages currently used on Ethereum. That's Solidity,
okay,
which is JavaScriptish,
okay,
and Viper, which is Pythonish.
Okay.
For other blockchains, there will be other types of languages, but other blockchains are decentralized, so it doesn't interest me. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so for the context of that, there's two with regard to Ethereum, but for the others, you probably need to go and research whatever the specific other blockchain is, what the languages are. I'm sure they'll make that information available. But so yeah, that's great. Keep those questions flowing in. Now I'm going to give you a pump up again on that Twitter. So BOKKYPOOBAH, that's Bokky Poobah on Twitter. So check that out for sure. And on Meetup, you'll be able to find the workshops as well. So you can go over there and check those out. Thank you, Blockchain Australia, for dropping that into the chat. So if there are no more questions for this panel today, hang on, they're still coming through. Okay, from Lockie, what are the best use cases for Solidity development? Currently, I'm making NFTs, not just NFTs, but an NFT making machine. So you'll see my work at my Twitter in the URL. I'm making zombie babies, and everyone can have a zombie baby NFT for a cost of the transaction fee.
Sure.
But if you dig behind it, you'll see the Solidity code that secures the tokens on the blockchain. And then if you dig further, you'll see there's the web UI, the Web3 user interface, and how it works within the Web3 browsers. And the code is there to copy.
Yes,
so
sure.
Anyone can make these NFTs. And the way this is being built is to create it so that it will last forever. And yeah, I've got the formula there. So
Well, there you go.
if you want to learn how to build these things, it's live.
There you go. Open source development too, one of the benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for sending that through, Lockie. We've got another one coming through from Jacko. Who else played a big role in saving Ethereum during the DAO hack?
Oh, lots of people. Yes.
Yeah. Be hard to name them all.
And the Sand.
Sure, of course.
Jordi, Lefteris, there was the Christoph Jens or something. Yeah, quite a few other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were different groups at different stages.
Of course. And on that particular topic, if you'd like to know more about that particular space, I highly recommend the book, The Infinite Machine, by Camilla Russo. It's a fantastic book on the history of Ethereum and all of the experience along the journey. So a great book. Go and check that one out for sure. Another one here is, of course, is Bokky running a course soon? Well, yes, very soon. We're going to work out the details of that, no doubt. Okay, so there's a question coming in again from the chat here. If you are new in the space, there is a lot of information to soak in: the history, MEV, EIPs. In your opinion, Bokky, what would you say the fundamental problems are to learn?
Oh, why we're doing this thing?
Sure. Okay.
So you can come in and learn Solidity as a language, but that's pretty boring by itself. To understand why you're doing it in Solidity, to have this run within the system, a decentralized system, that's quite important. So there are developers that don't take that away, and they would go and deploy on chains, but most it's like, chains with tricycle wheels.
Yeah, sure.
If you want to do something serious that integrates with lots of other applications that are decentralized, it's a space to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess another sort of insight on that too would be to really understand and appreciate why you'd be building on Ethereum in the first place. So what is Ethereum? What does it actually mean for the future of the space and technology companies and decentralization, open source code? Very, very different to how things have been traditionally done in technology. So you pretty much have to subscribe to this idea that things can be better and technology never stops. And this is an evolution of that. That's why we refer to Web3 a lot, right? It's, we've already moved past where we were, and we're looking forward, and we encourage people to do the same. So thanks for that one. Got another one here. Are there any other blockchain platforms we should watch out for? Sort of outside of the scope of Ethereum.
No. There's some wonderful things coming on Ethereum.
Yeah, sure.
And the wonderful things about Ethereum is the Ethereum community, of what
no
these people are trying to achieve. And the proof of stake beacon chain is currently live.
Do you want to, because that's an interesting one. A lot of people talk about mining and issues around that from an environmental perspective. There's a whole bunch of things around scaling. But in terms of staking, can you just sort of give us a brief overview of like what is proof of stake and what does it mean for Ethereum?
So proof of work, you needed to run complex or a lot of calculations. Calculations are not that complex, but you have to run lots of them in parallel. So, and the more of the mining reward that you want, you have to run more of these miners. And so it just it correlates indirectly to power and resources spent mining the chain. At the start of Ethereum, in the early days, I think it would be the ICO already. They had stated the intention to move off proof of work
to proof of stake.
To proof of stake.
Okay.
It's taken a long time, but they're trying to do it correctly. And this is the way with software development, things take time. You need to work out how to handle things before you can move to the next level.
Sure.
And so proof of stake, you can run it with a little box, which runs with little power. The main thing there is that you invest some, or you stake some coins.
Okay.
And if you cheat, that gets slashed.
Right. Okay. And so that's an interesting concept with the idea that there is an incentive alignment around there to do the right thing to ensure consensus and the security of the platform for all the smart contracts running on top of it, all the applications. Yeah. Sure.
And you don't need large power supplies. It's just a small thing. And so the first part of it is already live. That's the beacon chain, the Ethereum 2.0. And then they've got a bit more work to bring the current proof of work chain data to execute on the Ethereum 2, as well as space it out. But yeah, there's lots of wonderful things happening.
Yes, absolutely. And that being, of course, just an ongoing development in terms of where it's rolling. So no one has an actual ETA of when will we be fully migrated across, but there's certainly a lot of work happening there. There was the recent fork with Berlin and London upcoming and things like that are all sort of contributing to where we end up on this journey. So not an actual ETA on that. There was a question on that as well in the chat on a rough estimate. I don't know that you have that exact information.
It happens when it happens. This is the developer lifestyle.
Yeah, and this is where we go for crypto Twitter. So please go over there and check that out. Follow Bokky, of course. So look, we're about wrapped today because we're moving on to the next session. So thank you very much for listening today. Thank you to the team at Blockchain Australia. Done an amazing job bringing a lot of great people together, making sure that we can have these conversations. We do appreciate it. They've done a fantastic job. Make sure you do tune in tomorrow for episodes 4 and 5. Jack Magnuson will be your host going forward. He's tremendous, and he's going to be talking with Nick Johnson, and he's going to be talking with Peter Robinson. So thank you again. Today was brought to you by Block 8. And this session was brought to you by Mycelium, mycelium.ventures. You'll be able to check us out over there. Thanks very much. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your week.